So, first topics first. Ahsoka is a bomb on Disney Plus. Now, when we talk about this, it's important to note Samba TV doesn't have access to every household. That's important. Of course, it doesn't. However, we are comparing Samba TV's reports to other Samba TV reports. So we're comparing the metric like for like against other Disney Star Wars shows, which are, the metric is via Samba TV. So if there's a decline by Samba TV, then it shows that metric is something which we can rely on. It's not an accurate figure, or because they don't have the households for all the households in the States, but it's accurate when you're comparing it like for like. So we just got to get that pre-spiel out the way. But look, Samba TV reports on the viewership numbers. The series is tied with Andor as the least watched Star Wars show. Now, I'm not going to sit here and take great joy over this show absolutely being a bomb. Some people enjoy it. I'm pretty open-minded about where this goes. We shall see. It was a bit boring, though, in fairness. And the most interesting character was the villain, which that's not good. Your most interesting character should be the lead character. And this isn't good either, because this is Bob Iger, Disney, Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy, the decline of Star Wars. Star Wars is dead. Legitimately, it's dead now. So Samba TV reports that the viewership numbers for Ahsoka are lower than The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and are even with Andor as the least watched. So here we have it. The latest new Star Wars series, Ahsoka, finally hit screens with 1.2 million US households watching over its first 6 days. So it's similar to viewership of Andor's premiere season, slightly lower than Mandalorian's worst season, the third season premiere, over its first 6 days. It's not good. Now, not only that, it's important to note they released 2 episodes back to back, right? Literally day one, 2 episodes were released. But apparently they still managed to lose nearly 300,000 households between episode 1 and episode 2 within the same night. So between episode 1 and 2, 1.2 million tuned in for the first episode, and then only 956,000 for the second episode. They lost 300,000 viewers. This is why these metrics are important to go by, because they lost 300,000 viewers after the first episode. Done, gone, weren't interested. So what do we think just on that hot topic, ladies and gentlemen? I mean, Star Wars is dead. Legitimately, it's dead.
Well, and I think it really shows how, considering that you lost that many people after the first episode, that means one of a few things, mainly that a lot of people decided, yeah, this is way beyond my fan purview, and they were not up to speed enough with Ahsoka and Clone Wars and all that business to keep up with this, so they're like, yeah, no, I'm out. The other part is the show didn't leave them wanting more. That's another thing I hear. I can see with this. Yeah, and that kind of is a thing across the board with a lot of these shows with Marvel and Star Wars, as we learn, that they just kind of shoot them and they don't really necessarily plan where the breaks always are, it seems like.
Apparently, a lot of these, again, just with Marvel in general as well, like you're thinking about what they do. It's come out more and more now that they don't have a plan. They are literally shooting it. Marvel's Secret Invasion the story was made up as they were shooting it and as they were editing it. So when you're thinking about that, where are the breaks? How can you judge that? How can you plan it? How can you plan that sort of narrative hook to get you invested, to leave you wanting more on every
exactly episode? And I think that's one of the main things with Taylor Sheridan's television is, you can sit there, and I'm not going to argue with anybody that it's really, no different than a lot of, soap opera type writing. But what he does is he knows how to hook you. He hooks you at that end with the, you got to come back. And then not only that, he'll drag you into an episode with a hook at the same time. So you got it double-ended. Right. So you're already hooked from the last episode. Then when you start one, you're like, oh no, he's introducing me to something more, but I want to know what happened to the last thing. So then you find out what happened about the last thing in the first half of the show. And the second half of the show is setting up the resolution for that early tease. And then he sets up something else for that. He's constantly rolling into the next thing to where, look, it doesn't matter of the quality of the writing. It just is one of those things like with Deadwood, The Sopranos, and all those old shows that used to keep you hanging on the edge of your seat where you're like, I gotta see the next episode. I can't wait to see the next episode. And if you have it right there in front of your face and you're not watching it, that tells me there's zero interest. And that's the same thing that kind of happened with me with Andor, was like the first 3 episodes or whatever that came out, they weren't that bad, but I never found myself wanting to go back and finish it. I
Yeah.
still to this day haven't. Same thing with WandaVision and most of the Marvel shows I either haven't finished or the ones that I've finished turned out to be junk.
Yeah, well, it speaks volumes, doesn't it, quite frankly? Culture?
Look, there was no way you were going to get me interested in this show for a hundred reasons, but Tom spoke to it, and I know you have probably very eloquently today. This is a niche character in a shrinking niche.
Well, it's like a niche of a niche, really, if you think about it. But
yeah, and again, I mean, as you start to watch the rapid decline now of these numbers, it's rather apparent. And you know what? We could say it's Star Wars, but it isn't just Star Wars. This particular character doesn't have the kind of broad appeal that they want. They also don't have any hope if they're going to try to bring people in with the Thrawn trilogy, because despite the fact that that was a best-selling book to the point where it sold millions and millions of copies, it's still just to a very small fraction of people, and a lot of those people have noped out on Star Wars. I think that it was probably the most important thing you already pointed out is it dropped 300,000 people from episode to episode. I mean, in the same night. Right. And you don't usually get that from Disney. You don't usually get back-to-back episodes. You get one at a time, trudgingly down the road. And I look, Disney Plus as a property is not, growing. In fact, it's shrinking. And I imagine you'll have even more shrinkage here. This is going to be like Disney diving in some very cold pool water, trying to, they're going to have a lot of shrinkage.
Are you sure that it's not so much that Ahsoka didn't have broad appeal, or is it really that she's just not an appealing broad?
Oh.
Hey.
Well, this show is full of girl power, it's women's power. That's what they were boasting about too. But anyway, you were about to say something, Nate. I'm sorry.
No, well, I was just going to say, like, speaking of shrinkage, I mean, let's look at it compared to other Star Wars shows. So we talk about the metrics, right? We're talking about Samba TV. Obviously, it's not plugged into every household. Obviously, they don't measure every household. But let's look at what they measured versus other households with Samba TV. Obi-Wan Kenobi, 2.14 million households watched the first episode last year in May.
I can believe that.
Sort of the same time. Not the same, but sort of the same.
I'm surprised it's actually not bigger. I thought that'd be closer to like 5 or so.
I agree. However, 6-day time frame, Obi-Wan Kenobi was watched by in the same time frame as Ahsoka, the same time frame. So 2.14 was just the first day, right? Oh, sorry, in the first 4 days. First 6 days, the same time frame, 2.4. So a little bit more. And then you have 30% difference in the negative for Ahsoka from The Mandalorian Season 3, because that's watched by 1.7 million US households. That was when the decline and that shrinkage really
that you can see over half, like Mandalorian lost over half of its audience right there. That's not good.
Season 2 premiere of The Mandalorian watched by 2.08.
They even lost some after the first season, then it looks like.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Although I do know the Luke episode is still supposed to be their highest watched episode on Disney Plus of anything, supposedly.
I can believe that. Book of Boba Fett, 1.5 million households watched it. Not horrendous. So here's the numbers, 2.14 million households watched the series premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi in its first 4 days. 2.08 million households watched the Mandalorian Season 2 premiere first 4 days. 1.5 watched the premiere of Book of Boba Fett in its presumably first 4 days. So the decline is real. It's massively real. And this is only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
But Disney said it's a huge hit.
We'll get there. We'll get there. We're not there just yet. I still want to continue on with it. I
do that all the time to you.
No, it's good. It's good because I think this and the sort of response, which we'll get to in a minute. These numbers. What does this tell us about the state of Disney in general? Because this is interesting, right? Disney had said they released movies that bombed, and then they're like, "Oh, we'll pull back on those movies. We'll pull back." Right? We'll stop making as many Star Wars movies as we had been. Now they're releasing these shows What's Bob Iger said recently on all the earnings calls? Oh, we're going to slow it down. We're going to tone it.
He's been saying that for fucking 6 years. Sorry, for freaking 6 years.
I know, but they did with the movies. They did pull back. But it's funny, isn't it? You release a bunch of movies, they bomb, and then you say, right, well, we'll pull back then. You release a bunch of shows and they bomb, and the interest is calculable. You can literally watch the decline.
Here's where I wonder if there was some truth to, because we had heard it broke down to us in a way that the way the movies work over there compared to the way the shows work, because you got to remember, Lucasfilm, Marvel, Pixar are technically separate studios that are underneath the Disney umbrella, right? So they do they operate independently, in quotations, in a sense, but when it comes to releasing a movie, they have to go through Disney. So what we were under the understanding of is Kevin Feige and Kathleen Kennedy could greenlight TV shows until they're blue in the face. And they could do as many as they want and all this other business. But when it came to a movie, that's when they had to go through the upper echelon. And that's where I guess the first time out, that's where Bob was saying, yeah, we're going to slow down in the movies. And then she's just started greenlighting TV shows like they were going out of style. And that's where we all then you jump to what, like last year around this time, we heard that rumor where people are telling her, stop announcing these shows.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of it. And it's just this. They're still trying to saturate the market with this shit because they have to without even trying to fix anything. I mean, at this point, they've gotten so beyond. Like, I mean, you see where the problems set in. We've talked about it time and time again. You know, it was when Kathleen Kennedy was moved from, you know, being distracted by Blood and Bones back over to Star Wars. That's when Favreau seemed to be kind of excised out of everything. I mean, yes, he's still around technically in quotations, but at this point, you can tell it's all Dave. Dave is the head of all of creative shit. This has taken another major shift back towards the shit that we started with, and you can tell it clearly. Like, so again, at this point, until they clean house and start fresh somehow, Star Wars is dead, and I'm not sure you can fix it. I mean, people think that they can, but I'm not so sure you can.
No, I mean they did paint this as the event series. I mean that's not panned out, is it, at all? I mean these numbers speak volumes for that. Again, Samba TV like for like, it's just tragic, absolute tragic. So they really tried to, you know, paint this as the thing, but what an epic fucking failure.
Well, and it's prompted them to kind of hit back because of, just how dismal these numbers look. I mean, 1.2 million U.S. households. That's just from Samba. And again, you pointed this out. You usually take that number and triple it, and that's probably more close to how many people actually saw it here in the States, because that's the only place that you're really gonna get a lot of this tracking stuff. But Disney's going to tout an entirely other number because that's just the way that they are. This is really underperformed in a way that, I mean, it's just pitiful. I mean, that's the best number, the best descriptor I have. The best adjective is it's pitiful.
I like it.